Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today's topic is skeletal muscle. Here is the picture of neuromuscular junction or motor end plate. You can see here acetylcholine is being released. I will take my laser pointer. You can see this acetylcholine is being released, and after release it acts on receptors, and these receptors are NM type receptors, and by acting on these receptors an action potential is generated and there will be um, muscle contraction. The rest of the acetylcholine is degraded by acetylcholine esterase. All of you have read when you have learned your autonomic nervous system. Here is the concern is that the basic neurotransmitter at your motor end plate for the contraction of your muscle is the acetylcholine. Because we are going to discuss skeletal muscle relaxants, so you should have basic knowledge of its mechanism of action, how your skeletal muscles are being contracted and relaxed. Here is again a picture. You can see here there is nerve action potential. This causes acetylcholine release. When the acetylcholine is released, it causes depolarization. How depolarization takes place? Increased permeability to sodium and potassium. There will be muscle action potential, then there will be spread of excitation in the muscle, and that leads to muscle contraction. This is the basic physiology at the motor and plate that is being we can alter it by using the drugs. And which are the drugs which can alter them? Now we are going to discuss. This is the NM type receptor on which acetylcholine acts. You can see here it has alpha, gamma, sigma and beta subunits, and your acetylcholine is going to act on alpha subunits. There are two alpha subunits and the two molecules of acetylcholine can attach on these subunits, and it is basically an ion channel. When acetylcholine acts on this ion channel, there is inward entry of sodium and there will be action potential generation. Up till now I have told you only about the physiology, normal physiology, what is going on at the motor end. Now we come on the topic that is skeletal muscle relaxant. And what is the skeletal muscle relaxant? Skeletal muscle relaxants are the basically drugs that act peripherally at the neuromuscular junction or a muscle fiber itself, or it may act centrally in the cerebrospinal axis to reduce the muscle tone or to cause paralysis. It means that a skeletal muscle relaxant can act peripherally, it can act centrally, okay, or it can act directly on a muscle fiber. It means we can have three types of skeletal muscle relaxants. We are going to discuss their classification in the next slides. Similarly, you can define a muscle relaxant, or a skeletal muscle relaxant is the drug that affects skeletal muscle function and decreases the muscle tone. It may be used to improve the symptoms such as muscle spasm, pain, and hyperreflexia. Here is the classification. It is present in your books and you may be asked in your SEQs. So memorize it. You can see here there are two types: neuromuscular blockers and spasmolytics. Under the heading of neuromuscular blockers, we have two types of skeletal muscle relaxants that may be non-depolarizing, and number two may be depolarizing. Depolarizing is the only one, that is succinylcholine, and the non-depolarizing are again divided into long acting and intermediate acting and moreover short acting. Similarly, spasmolytics may be used for chronic use or maybe for acute use. We are going to discuss one by one. Here is the diagnostic picture. You can have centrally acting skeletal muscle relaxant that acts on your brain. You can have skeletal muscle relaxants that act on neuromuscular junction, and you can have skeletal muscle relaxants that act directly on muscles. Now first we are going to discuss peripherally acting muscle relaxants, also called neuromuscular blocking agents. These are of two types: non-depolarizing, as the name is indicating, they will not depolarize the neuromuscular junction. And always remember that non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants are competitive blockers, means that they compete with the acetylcholine, that is the natural neurotransmitter at your neuromuscular junction. Clear? I am going to repeat: non-depolarizing are competitive, while depolarizing are non-competitive. I mean to say, please don't combine two non. That is, if you are using the term non-depolarizing, kept in mind it is competitive. And if you are using the term depolarizing, keep in mind it is non-competitive. Okay. So non-depolarizing are again divided into long-acting, intermediate acting, and moreover short-acting. There are certain names of the drugs, you must memorize them. Depolarizing blocker is the only one, is the succinylcholine, that is used in our clinical practice. Now I'm going to tell you this just for the sake of history. It was the first fun hunting in the jungles to the operation theater. Basically, the curare was used as an arrow poison, and the tuberculin is the name because it was packed in the hollow bamboos, as you are seeing. In these hollow bamboos, they use curare to hunt these animals. So it comes from jungles to the operation. Now we are going to discuss non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants. I have told you that non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants are competitive, means that they are going to compete with the acetylcholine, which is natural neurotransmitter at your neuromuscular junction. First of all, there are certain key points about these non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants. Number one is they have affinity, but they have no intrinsic activity for the neuromuscular receptors. It means that they are antagonists. You have knowledge what is agonist, what is antagonist. You know that the antagonists have affinity for the receptor, but it has no intrinsic activity. It means that it cannot produce a conformational change in the receptor. Second point is that they have sodium atoms in and get attracted to the acetylcholine receptor site, means that they have affinity. Why they have? But they cannot bring conformational change like the acetylcholine, which is a natural neurotransmitter at the neuromuscular junction. So there will be no action potential generation in the nerve endings. However, they can only act on closed channels. So please be clear, the non-depolarizing competitive neuromuscular blockers act only on closed channel. So there will be no action on already opened channels. Please be clear about that. But after some times, action potential falls to the critical value, so there will be no propagation of action potential and there will be no contraction, and muscles are going to relax. This action can be overcome by increasing acetylcholine or clinically done by new stitch beam. It is used clinically. Clinically, during general anesthesia, when we are going to use these skeletal muscle relaxants that are non-depolarizing or competitive, at the end of surgery, when we are uh, no more we are need to relax the muscle, we use new stitchmine to end up the effect of these non-depolarizing block. Okay, they also block the pre-junctional acetylcholine receptors on the motor nerve endings. You may be asked, what is fade phenomena? So you are going to tell that non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants can block pre-junctional acetylcholine receptors that are present on motor nerve ending. This is called fade phenomena, which is turned to depressed on rapid. Here is again an elaboration of the mechanism of non-depolarizing neuromuscular blockers. Here you can see normal transmission that is going on your body. In this is the receptor, and this is in this picture it is in the resting state. You can see it is closed, channel is closed, and it is normal. When acetyl action potential comes on the nerve through the nerve ending, acetylcholine is released. It is going to attach with its receptor. Then the channel will open and there will be inward entry of the sodium and outward entry of the potassium, and the so action potential will be generated and your muscle will contract. This is normal. On other hand, you can see here these non-depolarizing blockers push the acetylcholine away. They do not allow, because they are competitive. I have told you that non-depolarizing are competitive. Mean that there is a competition between the acetylcholine and a non-depolarizing neuromuscular blocker. They are competing for a same receptor. So they do not allow the acetylcholine to attach to the receptor. I have told you that these non-depolarizing receptors act on closed channels. Okay, when they occupy this receptor, channel is no longer to be opened. When acetylcholine attaches to its receptor, it produces conformational change. So because of this conformational change, channels opens and allows the entry of sodium. But when non-depolarizing blocker attaches to the receptor, it will it is not able to produce a conformational change. So channel will remain closed. There will no inward entry of sodium, no action potential generation, and no muscle contraction. Okay, now it is clear. Now there is some elaboration in low doses and large doses. In low doses, they are competitive antagonist of acetylcholine, and at this stage, this action can be reversed by acetylcholine esterase inhibitors, because acetylcholine esterase is the enzyme that metabolizes the acetylcholine. If you are going to inhibitor of this enzyme, so acetylcholine will not be metabolized. It will be more acetylcholine will be present at your motor end plate. So we can reverse the action of non-depolarizing neuromuscular blockers in low doses. But in large doses, these non-depolarizing neuromuscular blockers block the ion channel. So there will be more weakness of neuromuscular transmission, and action could not be reversible by acetylcholine esterase inhibitor. At this stage, we use neostigmine to reverse this action. Other actions, they can block pre-junctional sodium channels and interfere with mobilization of the acetylcholine at the nerve endings. These are the three mechanisms by which these non-depolarizing competitive neuromuscular blockers act. Now we will proceed further. This is a diagrammatic picture again for the non-depolarizing block in the muscles. You can see here alpha, beta, gamma and sigma subunits and acetylcholine, and the non-depolarizing blockers act on alpha subunits, and there will be a conformational change when acetylcholine act. But if non-depolarizing blocker act, it will not allow the conformational change. In higher doses, it can block the ion channel. Intravenous, if we do an intravenous administration of tuberculin, there will be initially cause motor weakness followed by skeletal muscles become totally flaccid and unexcitable to electrical stimulation. Similarly, in larger muscles, for example abdominal trunk, are more resistant to blockade and recover more rapidly than the smaller muscles. This is very important. Diaphragm is usually the last muscles to be paralyzed, but when we stop it, diaphragm is the first muscle to come back to reverse, assuming that ventilation is adequately maintained and no adverse effects occur. When administration of skeletal muscle relaxant is discontinued, recovery of muscles usually occurs in the reverse order. I mean to say, when you administer these non-depolarizing skeletal muscle relaxants, your small muscles relax first, and in the end diaphragm is a large muscle and it is going to paralyze in the last, and it is very beneficial for the patient. It gives you the time for the tracheal intubation and to put it the patient into the ventilator, to put the machine on artificial respiration. You have sufficient time to put the patient on the artificial respiration. Similarly, when you stop the administration of skeletal muscle relaxants, your diaphragmatic muscle will first to contract, and it is very beneficial for the patients, so patients can breathe regularly. Here is the pharmacological actions of the non-depolarizing competitive blockers. Intravenous injection of non-depolarizing blockers rapidly produces muscle weakness followed by flaccid paralysis. They have certain actions on autonomic ganglia, produce some degree of ganglionic blockade. Some non-depolarizing blockers like D-tuberculorin releases histamine from the mast cells, and as you know, histamine release contributes to the hypotension. It can cause bronchial spasm, it can cause flushing, and it can increase the respiratory secretions and other effects. Similarly, on cardiovascular system, as regards the D-tuberculorin, it produces significant fall in blood pressure, and this fall in blood pressure, why? Because of ganglion blockade, because of histamine release and reduced venous return. As regards the gastrointestinal tract, ganglionic blocking activity of the competitive blocker may enhance the postoperative paralytic allegiance after abdominal operations. Similarly, central nervous system, all blockers are quaternary compounds, so they do not cross the blood-brain barrier. Uses of these non-depolarizing blockers: number one, they are adjuvants to general anesthesia. The most important use of these blockers is as adjuvant to general anesthesia. I have already told you. For the tracheal intubation, choice of the neuromuscular blocker depends upon the nature and duration of procedure, pharmacokinetics of the blocker, and the cardiovascular stability that it provides. I mean to say, it varies from patient to patient. What kind of surgery you are going, what is the duration of surgery, moreover, what is the cardiovascular status of the patient. Vicronium and the rocronium are the most frequently selected non-depolarizing blockers because of their pharmacokinetic properties. Number two use is the assisted ventilation. In critically ill patients in the intensive care units, they often need ventilatory support, and we can use these non-depolarizing blockers. Similarly, in convulsions and trauma from the electroconvulsive therapy can be avoided by the use of these muscle relaxants without decreasing the therapeutic benefit. Assisted ventilation, I have already told you. Thank you very much. This was all about the non-depolarizing neuromuscular blockers. In the next lecture, we are going to discuss depolarizing neuromuscular blockers and moreover centrally acting skeletal muscle relaxants. Thank you very much.